point out I'm Steve Keck. I'm the Contingency Preparedness Specialist for U.S. Coast Guard Sector Sault Ste. Marie. Also wanted to point out that I'm from Petoskey originally, born and raised. Now I live in the Sioux, working for the Coast Guard after 25 years in the Air Force. One of the things I wanted to do when I retired from the Air Force is get back here as quickly as possible, because in my opinion this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. So that shows my devotion to why I do this job, and I want to keep the Great Lakes great, and I know you all share that passion. So, and oh, by the way, the Sioux plays Petoskey Friday. Go Northmen. So, fighting Northmen. Don't even get me started on that kind of. But I was a fighting Northman. Anyway, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges we face in the Coast Guard, some of our proactive measures, what we do. And then I think what you all want to hear is what we're going to do in the event that we actually have a spill. What we've learned from our exercises and what we plan to do in the future. This slide right here just kind of shows you can see from this slide that the planet is growing exponentially. In 1960 had 3 billion people, now we've got 7.1, and they expect 9 billion people by 2025. You can see that those people tend to move toward the water. We call it littoralization, and that the energy demand across the world continues to rise. The reason I bring up this slide is just to show you that there's going to be no decrease in the amount of oil that the world is requiring. And that's going to be moving primarily under or over top of the water. So this is a real challenge for the Coast Guard to be prepared to respond to these spills. National Response Center, there's a graphic or a number up there. From 2013, we had 33,655 cases called into the NRC of spills nationwide. These spills can range in size from a teaspoon to 1 million gallons. Those numbers obviously don't add up to 33,655 because in reality, most of the cases we get are what we call mystery sheens. It's unknown what the cause was. But we do have some limited capabilities in the Coast Guard, as they do worldwide, in dealing with submerged oil. This is a technology that we continue to work on in oil response, and I think Mike will probably talk some about the challenges with submerged oil, something we might see in the Straits of Mackinac, and also our ability to deal with oil and ice, which is another challenge we'll talk about briefly. And like with everybody else up here that's with the federal state agency, we're running out of money. The Coast Guard has a huge geographic area, and we have a limited manpower. I am the sole planner for the Coast Guard in Sector Sault Ste. Marie that deals with oil spill response. Sector Sault Ste. Marie, just for your knowledge, covers all of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It covers the tip of the Mitt from Traverse City across to Alpena. And the reason Sault Ste. Marie is in charge of that, because all these small boat stations you have, like in Charlevoix, Sheboygan, Marquette, etc., those are just search and rescue stations. They do not do environmental response. So all the environmental response comes out of Sector Sault Ste. Marie. So the proactive measures we do as a Coast Guard, obviously we have plans. Everybody has plans, and we got a slew of them as well. The one that pertains to the Straits of Mackinac is the Northern Michigan Area Contingency Plan. That deals with all of Sector Sault Ste. Marie's area of responsibility, to include the Straits. We also have like joint contingency plans and Candy-Slack, which is a joint plan with the U.S. and Canada. And the real important one right there is now the geographic response plans, and this is the way everybody is moving. What this means is we're actually developing tactical plans to deal with real specific areas. And we have developed a tactical response plan or a geographic response plan for the areas where we feel the risk is the greatest, to include the Straits of Mackinac. This is when I say a tactical response plan. It breaks it down rather than just a management plan. It talks about specifics like where the staging area is going to be, where is the incident command post going to be, where are our pre-positioned resources at, what are our manpower capabilities. It's very specific to that area. What do we expect to be the cause of the spill, what are their capabilities, etc. Those are what we see in your geographic response plans. And of course, the industry has their own plans as well. But we have as a requirement as the Coast Guard to exercise our Northern Michigan Area Contingency Plan and our geographic response plans. I think the question came up earlier, how often do you exercise and how often you do call-outs, things like that. To answer that question, the Coast Guard does, every sector in the Coast Guard does quarterly drills. We call notification drills, where we do the call-outs to make sure our plans are still valid and all the numbers are still good, our contact numbers are still good. We also do quarterly incident management team drills. This is basically where we receive a report in our command centers of a spill somewhere. We mobilize our incident management teams, whose job is to respond to these spills as quickly as possible. They grab their go kits, we hook up our response trailers, and we head out to that site. We exercise those quarterly as well. We also do annual exercises, oil spill exercises. I'll talk about that in a little bit, what we've done in the past in the area. So it's mandated by the PREP guidelines that we at least do one per year. Our admiral down in Cleveland has said that we will do 2 major exercises per year, and 1 has to be devoted to pipelines now as well. So, and then we've gone way beyond that. I'll talk about some of the oil and ice drills we've done as well. We're involved in a lot of committees and groups, such as the Northern Michigan Area Committee, which is made up of federal, state, local, tribal, and industry partners all throughout this area. Everybody who has a vested interest in oil spill planning and response. We're also involved in like your county local emergency planning committees. Sector of Sault Ste. Marie has 17 counties in it, so I attend 17 different LEPCs, to include the one here in Mackinac County. We're involved with groups like No Spill out of Traverse City, and obviously we talk to groups such as the Mitt Watershed Council, Bird Lake Preservation Society, on and on and on, lots of groups. And then our exercises. Obviously we have our government-led exercises, like I'm talking about. FSC stands for full-scale exercise. We have industry-led exercises that we tie into, like the Enbridge exercise that we'll be doing in the Straits of Mackinac on the 24th. There's a fancy word for ice, hard water, is what the Coast Guard calls it. Hard and soft water operations, so we exercise both in hard and soft water environments. And we talk about functional exercises, which are basically command post exercises, tabletops and workshops, which are discussion-based exercises. And I mentioned we do notification drills and boom deployment drills, and our incident management team drills as well. We're always doing those. Will any of that prevent a spill? I think you all know the answer to that, and it is a big no. So what we do is we plan for the big one, and this is our worst case discharge scenarios. Where does a worst case discharge scenario come from? We were talking about risk analysis. Gentleman over here was talking about risk analysis. We use the Coast Guard model for risk analysis. It's called the SPE model, SPE. It stands for severity, probability, and exposure. The Area Committee does that. The Coast Guard doesn't do that in a vacuum. The Area Committee, all these different members from federal, state, local, tribal, industry partners all work together to come up with our risk analysis. And then we risk where our greatest risks are. And the Straits of Mackinac ranked #1. Actually tied with the St. Mary's River, because on the St. Mary's River we have tankers that carry about 3.5 million gallons of heating oil up and down the St. Mary's on their way to Thunder Bay, Ontario. So that's another high risk, because if we have a spill in the St. Mary's, within a matter of minutes it's going to impact both Canada, the United States, the Soo locks, a lot of other critical infrastructure and things like that. So Straits of Mackinac and the St. Mary's both ranked #1. So anyway, we look at that, and then we identify where the greatest risk is, so we can focus our efforts. And we look at oil facilities such as the one in Sheboygan. We look at pipelines such as the Mark West Pipeline, the Enbridge Pipeline, tanker vessels, ferry vessels, anything that transits in the Great Lakes. We do risk analysis for all of those different things. Now the big thing, response process. What's going to happen if there's a spill in the Straits of Mackinac? What are we going to do? How's it going to play out? First thing that's going to happen is whoever reports that spill is going to go to the National Response Center. What the National Response Center does is they then contact the Sector of Sault Ste. Marie Command Center. From there, it's a notification tree that goes out to all those agencies I talked about, federal, state, local, tribal, industry, etc. I'll get the notification that there's been a spill. Sector of Sault Ste. Marie is immediately going to launch their incident management team, that same team I told you that drills quarterly. That's a pre-identified team of responders out of the sector, and we have contingency trailers ready to go. We have go kits with all of our incident command system bags packed and ready to go. We have all of our radios, our Wi-Fi hotspots, our laptops, everything we need to stand up an incident command post. If we had a spill in the Straits, we should probably have our team on scene probably in about 2 hours, because the role of the Coast Guard is to oversee the management of the spill cleanup. The onus of the cleanup falls on the responsible party, not on the Coast Guard. We're just simply there, not simply, we are there. I'm going to keep my job. We are there to make sure that the responsible party is doing exactly that, cleaning up the spill in an effective and efficient manner. So the Coast Guard oversees that response, and we manage all of the, like I said, the incident command system. Because what's going to happen is once we get on scene and we stand up that pre-identified command post, you're going to see a cascading of resources and personnel flowing in from all those different agencies, the Department of Environmental Quality, Department of Natural Resources, the EPA, NOAA, Fish and Wildlife Services, U.S. Coast Guard, responsible party assets, tribal assets if it's in the jurisdiction is in tribal areas. All these things are going to start converging on that command post. And it is our job as the Coast Guard to manage all of those resources, to open up that plan and get everybody pointed in the right direction. So I say, get them on the right bus and in the right seats. This is what we exercise time and time and time again to make sure that when all these agencies show up, and I think Ralph alluded to it too when he gave his speech up here, the thing is you got to get to this as quickly as possible. You have to attack this oil as quickly as possible before it has that chance to disperse and start to sink. So we want to make sure we can get all these people moving in the right direction, get those staging areas stood up, get the boats launched, and launch into our strategies and our plans that we've already had developed to attack that oil. That is the response process. I think somebody else asked earlier too, what resources do we have pre-positioned? Again, the onus is not on the Coast Guard to clean up that spill, it's on a responsible party. However, the Coast Guard does have contingency trailers pre-positioned all throughout the AOR. We have some in Sheboygan, for example, we have some in Charlevoix, we have some in Munising, we have some in Manistee, we have some in Marquette, all throughout the AOR. But these are really just a Band-Aid. They have limited amounts of boom and limited amounts of cleanup stuff in it. It's really for smaller spills you might find in a marina or something like that. So again, the onus is on the responsible party, and they have contractors, what we call oil spill removal organizations, or OSROs, that they have on contract. They would be expected to contact their OSRO, who would start sending resources to that spill and start cleaning up as quickly as possible. So, I mean, that's how it works. And then we have other limited resources in the area. In the Straits of Mackinac, we do have some pre-positioned equipment. Enbridge Pipeline also has pre-positioned equipment on the north and south side. There's also another contractor, Mackinac Environmental, in St. Ignace, which has several thousand feet of boom, a couple boats, and a couple personnel. We would expect, if they tell us, that they would have at least 2 boats and 2,500 feet of boom starting to deploy within the first 30 minutes to 1 hour of the spill. So we do have some stuff nearby, but again, the majority of it's going to come out of places like Detroit, Michigan, and places like that. And it's all going to start converging on the Straits. Through our exercises, we identify shortfalls, what does and what does not work. When we talked about the oil and ice drills, we identified there were a lot of challenges with ice. I think somebody else pointed out that yes, it's very, I think it was you, Mike, pointed out it's very difficult to respond in ice conditions. We did drills, like I said, in 2011, 12, and 13 in the Straits of Mackinac, and we found out that a lot of the things we thought might work didn't work. This is an evolving technology. For example, some things like the aerostats, it's basically like a balloon that goes up and gives us a real-time picture of the strait so we can see where the product is moving to, worked very well. Some of the autonomous underwater vehicles worked very well. Some of the things that didn't work was dragging boom across ice, which we found out is a really bad thing, and that doesn't work. So that's the whole point of the exercise in the first place, identify what does and doesn't work. And this research continues to this day. Coast Guard Research and Development is continuing to work on oil and ice. Last year they were up in Alaska working on new technologies up there. And right now they're in the process of developing another drill over in Duluth this winter. So it's a continuing evolution. Same thing applies to the heavy oil. That is a continuing process. We've identified that the science doesn't really exist to recover oil once it gets to the bottom. Again, research and development is continuing on that, and the Coast Guard is obviously paying attention to where they go with that. But right now, again, it's very difficult. It would be extremely difficult in the Straits because of the depth and because of the currents that were identified by Dr. Anderson. We also do concerted efforts to bring more spill mitigation equipment to the region. This is something that is a concentrated effort between us, the EPA, PHMSA, for example. We're meeting with Marcos Pipeline tomorrow to talk about the same kind of things. Let's try to get more and more equipment and get more buy-in. So that is the response process. I said those are the challenges we face. We have the proactive measures and we have the reactive measures. And again, somebody else used the same terminology up here. I think he said we don't operate in a vacuum. Certainly the Coast Guard does not operate in a vacuum, which is why we do our exercises the way we do. We rely heavily, again, on all of our federal, state, local, tribal partners, and industry partners, and academia to help us. It will be definitely a unified response should there be a spill in the Straits, or anywhere in our AOR for that matter.